We cannot let them steal America through their illegal acts of treason and acts of war against this country.
Do you believe this goes all the way back up to Nancy Pelosi, to Adam Schiff, to Barack Obama, to Joe Biden?
Yes.
You mentioned and you used the word coup.
Special Operation Forces seized that facility. So they have those servers. And that's why the 305th, the Krakens, were targeted and selected, I believe, because the president could trust.
We cannot let them steal America through their illegal acts of treason and acts of war against this country.
Hello, everybody. It's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. Acts of war. You heard that correctly. We have got a lot to go through in this episode. We're going to find out what the Kraken really means, what the Kraken really is. We're going to play excerpts from the first interview with General Michael Flynn since he was pardoned by President Trump. We're going to go through a fantastic article from the Federalist that's going to help you go from hope so to absolutely no so. We're going to play some video of fake ballots being ordered from a Chinese vendor. And finally, I'm going to show you in real time on CNN, 19,958 votes being switched from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. It's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Remember in those first few days after the election and all the omnipresent among us were so sure that there's no voter fraud, no election fraud anywhere because they have the ability to be everywhere at once. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are way past this, way past that. When Sidney Powell said that the information was coming in so fast it was like a fire hydrant, she was absolutely correct. And if you've gone through and read those filings in Georgia and in Pennsylvania, or rather Michigan, pardon me, it's full of information, and in the old days, the media would be all over that, wanting to get an exclusive, get one of those affiants to the camera before anyone else. They're not doing any of that. Why? Because they are part of the coup d'etat. They are part of the effort to throw this election, and that is not going to happen, and the evidence is out there. By the way, please like and please share this video. I started off on Facebook, and you can see right back to the last time that we did an interview, or rather played excerpts of an interview with James McInerney. You can just see the numbers go in the tank thanks to Mr. Zuckerberg, but that's okay. But you can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Parler. Ohio for Freedom. Ohio for Freedom. Find us. Please like, share if you're on YouTube. Please hit the notifications bell. We ain't going to quit, folks. We ain't going to fix. What is the Kraken? What is the origin of using that term to describe the evidence that Sidney Powell had? Well, I, at least, maybe you knew, I didn't. I finally found out in this interview with General Michael Flynn, Tom McInerney, and Mary Fleming, who broke the story about Hammer and Scorecard in 2015. Let's play the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
We also had it in the legislature where you have Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, all of those people were involved in this. They were involved in the Russian hoax. They were involved in this coup d'etat. But we also had the judiciary. And Judge Sullivan, who was General Flynn's judge, outed himself on this. And so you have the compromise there, and that's why the 305th, the Krakens, were targeted and selected, I believe, because the president could trust them.
So now we know where the phrase the Kraken comes from. According to General McInerney, and he ought to know, the Krakens are a division of the 305th military. There's some kind of military intel division. And so all along, when Sidney Powell has been talking about releasing the Kraken, she's been talking about specific sources within the military intel community. And I'm going to go through just a few things that I learned from this interview. I have posted it on ohioforfreedom.com. I want to give credit. Thank you to, and I don't think I'm supposed to say the name of the person that sent that to me, but this was sent to me, and it's from worldviewweekend.com. The host is Brandon House, and I think I will be tuning in to that source pretty regularly because he landed the first interview that General Michael Flynn did since he was pardoned, and he's interviewed General McInerney many, many times. So this is a source I'm going to be going back to. But we learned the source of what the Kraken really is. Also, General McInerney in that interview confirms that the raid in Frankfurt, Germany, it did happen. He also says that it was a CIA facility. He also says that there were casualties. He actually says that. He believes that to be true. You haven't heard anything about the raid. You certainly haven't heard anything about casualties from the mainstream media, which I'm hoping y'all have completely given up on them. You heard him just say that as far as the efforts to undermine, and he uses the word coup, so I'll stay with that word, but that involves Schiff, Pelosi, Schumer, and Judge Sullivan, who was overseeing Michael Flynn's case. There's reasons they didn't want Michael Flynn to be able to say anything, because Michael Flynn knows a lot. In this interview also, General McInerney says that following the cyber trail, that's how I'll say it, they were able to discern. He talks about a good footprint and a bad footprint. In other words, they're able to identify loyalists within the military and intelligence community, and they're also able to identify the deep state actors, which leads us into, he was asked by host Brandon House about the importance of the executive order that the president signed in September of 2018, and according to General McInerney, that executive order could come in very, very handily. I mean, there's going to have to be some enforcement at some folks place. And also, and by the way, I don't have the time to type out these comments. I just make them, so you're going to hear me make a mistake once or twice and just have to live with it. But also, I wanted to say this, that he also mentions the significance of special ops reporting directly to the new Acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller. So when they have to swoop in and enforce things, it might get real interesting. And then lastly, in this interview, which again, the link is placed on ohioforfreedom.com, General McInerney says that he believes that individuals at least high up, he specifically mentions Fox News, were in on the scam, and I have no reason to doubt him. And I'm going to play that clip for you right now, and then we're going to move on to the next subject.
And they are guilty of treason because they didn't tell the proper authorities. Anybody that was complicit. Fox News, in my opinion, some of those people are guilty of treason, whether it's the president, whoever it is, because they flipped and they knew what they were doing and they made those early announcements. And so anybody involved with this is complicit in it.
Pretty stout words, folks, but you heard what the general said. And if you go back to that executive order that President Trump signed in September of 2018, it's real specific and it's got some teeth. And so, of course, I'm not saying everybody at any network or anything like that, but I think you're going to see that certain individuals within not just Fox News, that they are going to be found to be complicit. And I don't know what, we've never been through anything like this in our country. You know, I haven't played a whole lot of Michael Flynn from this interview that he was involved in, but one of the things that he did say is that he, throughout his career, he's watched as especially working with our State Department, might be involved in trying to shape an election in some, third world country or somewhere else on the globe. And he would talk about how they would take over a radio station because what you want to do is you want to get a fake exit poll and then broadcast that and just convince a country that a certain outcome of an election took place. But when this is happening, by means of cyber means and broadcast means. Folks, there's a couple of words we're going to have to get comfortable with tossing around, and one of them's coup d'etat. I guess that's more than one word. And the other one's treason, because that is what, make no mistake, that is where we're living. We are living through a time in our nation's history where a coup has been attempted against our country and where there's a lot of treasonous individuals out there. So I would strongly encourage you, find the link on OhioForFreedom.com, and that is just it's like that Pennsylvania proceeding that happened on Wednesday, or like Sidney Powell's lawsuits. It is just so packed with information, your head will be spinning. I want to get into this article from the Federalist. If you need something still, and we'll cut you some slack if you do, but if you need something that's just going to help you, pardon me, mentally, just come from hope and so to know and so, coming from a gut hunch, something's not right, to knowing some things, this article is just absolutely powerful. And I also saw that Mario Murillo echoed it. So let's get into that right now. It's from the Federalist. I'm going to read you just the opening of it, and then we're going to break it down point by point. Won't take too long. Outstanding article from the Federalist, and the author is J.B. Shirk. 5 ways Joe Biden magically outperformed election norm. Okay, so there's 5 points. This is a really good read because you can read this in like 3 to 5 minutes. It's not that long, but it's so concise. So we're just going to break them down one by one. And if you will spend some time kind of committing this, you will never be caught off guard or swept off balance because the logic is just so clear and concise. Let's get to the first. Number 1, 80 million votes. Holy moly, a lot of Americans turned out for a Washington politician who's been in office for nearly 50 years. Now, this article is written from a sarcastic point of view, which I really, really love, but he makes the point here that President Trump got 10 million more votes this time as compared to 2016, and somehow Joe Biden managed to go beyond that. Really? And I want to read you this last line. This is great. Proving how sharp his political instincts are, the former vice president managed to gather a record number of votes while consistently trailing President Trump in measures of voter enthusiasm. Listen to this. Biden was so savvy that he motivated voters unenthusiastic about his campaign to vote for him in record numbers. Number 2, winning despite losing most bellwether counties. Biden is set to become the first president in 60 years to lose the states of Ohio and Florida on his way to election. We are supposed to believe that even though Biden lost Florida and Ohio, he still won the election. The Epoch Times and the Wall Street Journal also did an analysis of 19 bellwether counties that are almost always, when you look at these 19 counties, it'll tell you the winner. President Trump handily won all but one county in the state of Washington, and yet somehow Biden still managed to win. How did he do it? Well, maybe this next one will give us a clue. Number 3, Biden trailed Clinton except in a select few cities. We're supposed to believe Biden won when he underperformed against Hillary Clinton's numbers in 2016. Read you just one sentence. Biden underperformed Hillary Clinton in every major metro area around the country except for Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. Number 4, Biden won despite Democrat losses everywhere else. This is just a huge one where this supposed election result does not pass the smell test. We're supposed to believe that Biden won while the Democrats lost. They lost House seats. They did not gain Senate seats. Yeah, we got this issue going off in Georgia, but down ballot, down ticket, they lost. The Republicans, on the other hand, gained. We gained something like anywhere from 12 to, when it's all said and done, maybe twice that many seats in the House. We gained 3 state legislatures, and we're going to hold on to the Senate. And so we're supposed to believe that down ballot, Republicans did great, but Trump did bad. And we're also supposed to believe that down ballot, Democrats did terrible, but Biden did good. It ain't passing the smell. Number 5, Biden overcame Trump's commanding primary vote. The article states that no president in American history ever that has gotten 75% of the primary vote total has ever gone on to not be reelected. And it also states that President Trump had 94% of the primary vote total, and that was the 4th highest of all time. And it mentions that it was higher than Dwight Eisenhower, higher than Nixon, higher than Clinton, and higher than His Highness Barack Obama. So there you go. Take a look at those 5 things, kind of commit them to memory. This ought to take you from gut hunch to there's just no way that Biden won this, because he didn't. I want to take a look at the state of Georgia, and then I want to look and tie it to this phone call from China. This is interesting stuff. Let's take a look.
Let's read item 75 from the Georgia lawsuit. FLYNN explains she observed a batch of utterly pristine ballots. Most of the ballots had already been handled. They had been written on by people, and the edges were worn. They showed obvious use. However, one batch stood out. It was pristine. There was a difference in the texture of the paper. It was as if they were intended for absentee use but had not been used for that purpose. There was a difference in the feel. These different ballots included a slight depressed prefold, so they could easily be folded and unfolded for use in the scanning machines. There were no markings on the ballots to show where they had come from or where they had been processed. These stood out. In my 20 years of experience of handling ballots, I observed that the markings for the candidates on these ballots were unusually uniform, perhaps even with a ballot marking device. By my estimate, and observing these ballots, approximately 98% constituted votes for Joe Biden. I only observed 2 of these ballots as votes for President Donald J. Trump.
Pristine ballots that looked like they'd never been touched in a nice, neat little stack. The paper looks a little different. They're almost all made out, like 98% of them, to Joe Biden, and it looks like it could have been a machine that filled them in, or maybe even pre-printed them that way. Where could something like that come from? Don't know for sure, but looking at that and looking about what we're going to take a look at right now is kind of interesting. Oh, you'll need to read this, blown it up, unless you speak Chinese. Let's take a look.
不是问题，主要是那个，只要你那个钱到位，那量不是问题，都可以的。
因为它那个油墨油那个印刷的是不一样的。
印刷不一样是吧？
对啊，因为你仔细看一下，它那个选票的那个印刷是不一样的。
那个没关系，我会看着那个图片来做这边。
然后到时候你们这边发物流的话怎么发？因为我这边订的话就是大量的订这样子。
大量订那个发物流的话，应该好像也要好几天了，物流比较慢。
发国际可以吗？
我看一下，发国际好像也是走物流啊。
可以走是吧？你这边费用的话多少钱打印一张？我这边现在叫人给你转。
那个跟上次一样啊。
OK， 好，我知道了。你再把二维码发我一遍，谢谢。
然后那个还欠一点那个。
知道。
给我。
OK， 好。
I'm emailing that out to a friend of mine who speaks Chinese because he's from China. Good friend of mine. I'm going to get his opinion on, how the language, because I don't speak Chinese. Are those 2 things necessarily connected? No, but it's the concept. Where did those pristine ballots that this affiant in Georgia was talking about, where did they come from? And where did all the ballots come from in the states where they had more people file mail-in ballots than what were mailed out, where more people voted than were actually registered to vote? Because that happened several different places. So we're going to wrap up, and I've put all the links on today's blog on ohioforfreedom.com. This next clip is going to be condensed for you. On the Gateway Pundit, they published 5 videos that show vote switching, Trump votes going down in real time. Now, this first clip that I'm going to play you, every one of those clips, he let it run, so you can see it in real time, and they all last at least about a minute. I'm going to just show the first one, state of Pennsylvania, and you're going to see the before and after, so to speak, and you're going to see 19,958 votes that Trump loses, and you're going to see 19,958 votes that Joe Biden gains. How did that happen?
Are to be decided, and that would push, and again, if you come at this from a Republican perspective, in that ballpark, this is not an exact science, but somewhere in that ballpark, looking at Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and maybe Iowa, and the one more congressional district there. That's the way the map.
Once again, the link is on OhioForFreedom.com, or go to the Gateway Pundit. You can find it. Does that prove anything? Well, yes and no. No, it doesn't prove election fraud, but it does prove that you can't believe a thing that you see on CNN. I mean, it proves it. I mean, you don't have 19,958 votes switched like that. It just doesn't happen. I'm going to try to put a wrap on this, everybody. Right after the election, most of us, I think you were like me. You just knew in your gut you could smell a rat, but you didn't necessarily have, the proof, the links, whatever. I remember a couple of weeks ago now showing Dr. Shiva and his team that have done computer forensics on, election anomalies. They had experience with that, and they were talking about those spikes that happened in Michigan. And so, back then, 2 weeks ago, was like, okay, starting to get a little bit of evidence. But folks, once again, we are so past that. There is so much evidence. So we are moving from our gut says something to we know something. So now, when you're praying about this, there needs to be an insistence. And I just want to say that this fraud, this coup, this treason is not going to stand. A lot of different things can happen at the Supreme Court, at the district courts, where the Supreme Court justices have been allocated, state legislatures. I don't know how it's ultimately going to shake out, but I'm going to say it again. Donald J. Trump's going to be sworn in on January 20th, y'all. That is going to happen because the Patriots are not going to be sitting and aware of all of this evidence and allow the Marxist, Democrat, socialists to steal this election, and that ought to be encouraging to you. If you can please like, share, and subscribe. Once again, we really, really appreciate it. And until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless the state of Ohio, and God bless this wonderful United States of America.